When Americans think of our southern border, they think of high fences, patrol vehicles, and 20,000 Border Patrol agents at work, keeping us safe. Our citizens hear about the dangers, killings, beheadings, kidnappings, and violence along the Mexican border and assume that it's contained there. They hear about the brutality of the cartels and have no idea how far their activities have ventured into American soil. In Arizona, 70 miles north of the border, the men and women of the Pinal County Sheriff's Office have a frontline battle region of their own.
The area where you guys are at is where we last had them, but we lost them underneath the thick brush, so...
Yeah, 10-4, no problem.
My fellow Americans can't imagine what it's like to serve as a sheriff or one of my deputies in the #1 county for pass-through of drugs and human smuggling in the entire nation. We're not even on the border.
The terrain features, highways, and landmass make it an inviting place to cross.
From I-8 south and I-10 west, that entire area is open desert from here down to Mexico.
And nearly half of all the illegals that come into America come through this portion of Arizona. 210,000 just last year alone were apprehended. The Border Patrol admits that reflects just 1 out of every possible 3. And that's a conservative estimate. So now we're talking 600,000 plus just in one sector of Arizona, the Tucson sector. And they're coming through my county on their way to Metro Phoenix, America's 6th largest city.
On the federal side, they won't really admit, I guess, that there's a problem for us because we're not a border county, so they don't look at it as a border problem per se. But our problem with that is that we have all the border-related crimes. We have the smuggling corridors, we have the homicides, we have the rapes, everything that goes along with the smuggling down at the border is here.
That carry this on their back, and it's 40 to 60 pounds of marijuana, and they bring this into the United States. We confiscated 50,000 plus pounds of this last year. It's not stopping.
Bebu and other sheriffs are having to face foreign cartels and the most violent criminals in North America when they already have their hands full with just the day-to-day activities of policing their own counties.
How you doing, sir?
I only have 214 sworn deputies. Half of my staff work in our 1,500 inmate jail. Primarily, our job is to respond to your 911 calls. If there's a head-on collision, if there's domestic violence, if there's a robbery, if there's anything that's going on, that's our job. Over the size of our county, the size of Connecticut. And so already we're strapped. And yet we have to take our resources to go and fight these cartel members.
Many of these men have seen the brutality and atrocities of these cartels up close and personal.
They have no regard for human life. We have individuals being exploited by these drug cartels or by these human smuggling cartels.
They'll threaten them and their families for them to work for the cartel, to make them push the drugs over to the other side.
We've had cartel hits here in this county. We have had crime after crime. We've gone from 140 high-speed pursuits back just 3.5 years ago to this year, 340 high-speed pursuits. And it's not because my deputies like to drive fast. It's because the cartels are becoming more violent.
They have no regard for the citizens of this country. We've seen where they have multiple homicides in the desert, multiple shootouts, not 30 miles from where you and I stand right now.
The cartel member was being released by the courts, and he had a hit on him from the Los Zetas, a violent cartel in Mexico that said they were going to kill him because they believed he was a snitch. And as he's being released, which is normally a very happy day for a prisoner, punches out one of my detention officers, breaks his nose, 11 stitches on his face, kicks him while he's down, had to be restrained, and he said it was safer behind bars than it was being released because he was going to be killed by the cartels. This is the ripple and the impact from this war with the cartels.
That foxtrot is going to break down the alley and they're going to come to the back of that residence and just give you cover over the fence. So
The dangers to these warriors and their families are real. They live under the constant threat of cartel retaliation and personal retribution against them for the jobs they do. They know they disrupt the operations of ruthless and evil men.
My guys and deputies and undercover, take their money. We seized $1.8 million recently in cash from these cartels, and we get a portion of that. We take their vehicles, we take their houses. When we do that, we don't make friends with these people. We become forever their enemy, and this is business to them. We now are coming under threat of retaliation from criminal elements from a foreign country.
These individuals are, in some cases, well-trained. They know the area better than some of the individuals that we have on our side in law enforcement. In some cases, they have better equipment, better radios, better communication, better weapons, and they have unlimited funding.
It's hard for us to even travel around without the bad guys knowing where we're at all times because they're everywhere.
There are over 100 lookouts in this one small corridor of Arizona alone, working for the cartel to communicate the movement of officers to traffickers moving through the area.
And they report using encrypted radio communication, hey, the sheriff is here, or Border Patrol are here. They have a network of support logistically to supply food and water. They have stash houses, very detailed escorts for their vehicles or for their mules, actual people that are carrying loads of drugs on a daily and a nightly basis here.
How has it that we've arrived at this point that it's the job of the local sheriff to fight foreign cartels, the most violent criminals in North America, when me and my deputies already have a difficult enough job in a county larger than 3 small U.S. states?
70 miles from the border, you would think that farms like Scott Blevins wouldn't be affected by border crime. But you'd be wrong.
When I was young, my dad's worries were, am I going to be able to get water at 1 o'clock in the morning to irrigate 80 acres of barley? Is my tractor going to be running in the morning because we got 500 cows to feed? Today's issues, I believe, with the ranchers and the people in agriculture is, am I going to come home tonight to my family?
Am I going to be working my farm and get robbed by somebody that's a part of a drug trafficking organization or alien smuggling? Am I going to be shot at because I saw too much? Is my family going to be taken hostage because we know too much? All of those things are coming into the farmers' minds now, and that's beyond my comprehension, that our citizens have to worry about their safety in their own homes and their own lands that their family has had for, some of these people have had these lands for centuries.
Many of our citizens in the western part of our county cannot leave their home without leaving somebody behind who's armed.
This isn't a joke. This isn't politics. This is real life.
We're not dealing with just illegal immigration. We're not dealing with just illegal dope. We have illegals bringing illegal weapons up. We have people coming out to rob those people.
We refer to them as rip crews because they rip the drugs from the cartels and they steal the cartel drugs.
And they actually go out armed and they basically steal either the bodies or the narcotics that are being transported at gunpoint. We have coyotes extorting, raping the illegals that they're bringing up. So there's so many aspects to this problem, and on any one night we run into multiple things.
Those who secure the borders and enforce the laws understand the implications for those who try to enter this country for a better life. They empathize with those victimized by cartels. They also know the flip side, the fact that America has a front door for those who want to come here legally. Their job as sworn law enforcement officers is to enforce laws.
When you kind of look at these people that are crossing over, it's like to them they have no other choice but to do that, because in the state the way their country is, it's in a state of poverty. I have family that still lives out in Mexico, and I go out there frequently, and out there, even if they have a great job, you really rarely see them smile sometimes. And sometimes they do this just as a last line for themselves, or they feel that this is their only way out. And unfortunately, sometimes it is. And just the other day, saw a 14-year-old kid that turned 15, crossing over, and that to me was a shock. It was painful.
From a human aspect of that, we can understand it. Hence the reason, though, we as a country have specific policies in place that if somebody wants to come into our country and wants to immigrate into our country, they're allowed to do so. But there are policies and procedures and that they need to follow to do so.
Somehow we're not good Americans because the history of America is a nation of immigrants. Well, we're not against immigration. We're against illegal immigration.
Lieutenant Matt Thomas can get a little testy at the suggestion that he and others in law enforcement have any motive other than the safety, protection, and well-being of those they serve.
We're doing police work. We're not targeting any one group for their race, for their religion, for anything like that.
Well, now it's already getting to the point where, oh, you're just stopping because I'm Mexican. Well, it's not even about that.
We're targeting criminals, and we criminally profile these people, and we go after them because that's what our citizens demand, and that's what we demand of ourselves, because that's our job. Our job is to keep our country safe, and our job is to keep our citizens safe.
The fundamental reason why we're out here is because of the drugs. I mean, just yesterday we seized over 2,000 pounds of marijuana. The night before that, over 200 pounds of marijuana. And when we catch them, yeah, they're relieved. They don't have to lug 50, 75-pound bale of marijuana. I mean, granted, yeah, they're caught, but at the very least, they're going to be tended to, they're going to be cared for, and have their needs met.
There's countless times that we've rescued people in the desert that were left behind by the coyotes, by the guides.
Just recently we had a group that was abandoned, left, and they were four days without food or water.
They don't care about these people. They leave children and women out in the desert literally to die. You know why? Because they were too slow.
We located them on a mountain near death, and they had been drinking their own urine, including the children, for 2 days.
We can go from law enforcement enforcing the law to being compassionate, to dusting a person off, making sure they have water, making sure that they're okay, stabilize them if they were injured. And that's who we are. We're prideful in the fact that we're enforcers of the law, but I see the compassionate heart in these men and women that swore an oath to our country, not just to be a law enforcement officer, but to protect and preserve our Constitution. And they take it very seriously.
In our area, being open desert, there's some areas south of us, 60, 70 miles south of our county, that it's essentially a cattle guard crossing into Mexico.
These guardians of liberty and defenders of American sovereignty know all too well the monumental challenge that's really out there. They know the growing vulnerability that's hiding in plain sight. While they have outgrown their fear of the boogeyman, they shudder at the thought of what could be, the reality of the clear and present danger that is.
If the citizens of the United States think that terrorist organizations don't know how porous our border is, they're fooling themselves, because they have intel, they gather intel just as we do. Obviously, that's why it's an organization. It's not a fly-by-night sort of thing. When you have terrorist cells that are like that, they try to get people into our country.
This is a likely avenue of approach, because if the majority of basic illegals aren't apprehended, clearly people with deliberate plans against America have a far better chance to make it here successfully.
Frequently, they encounter low-flying aircraft that cross under-border radar flying the nap of the earth.
These aircraft carry, upwards of 200 to 300 pounds of marijuana from Mexico, and they fly undetected into our airspace and basically drop this product off not 20 miles from where we stand right now. Who's to say that next time they don't load that same aircraft with some type of dirty bomb and fly it another 30 miles into downtown Phoenix?
This is not just about illegal immigration. It's not just about the drug cartels that have nearly toppled the Mexican government. 42,000 people have been murdered. It is a national security threat against our country. And we better get on top of this now before there's far more serious trouble facing our country.
Beyond the armor and weapons, the uniforms, and even the emblems that announce their affiliations and calling, these heroes are everyday citizens who live and raise families in the same area they defend for others. They are husbands and wives, fathers and mothers, coaches, scout leaders, volunteers within their communities, and so much more. Uniformed officers and deputies, they belong to a brotherhood and community of interoperability and dependence. As such, maybe even more than others, they understand the importance of the communities they are sworn to protect, the communities in which they live.
You're just compelled to move a certain way, I guess, in your life, and I wanted to do something honorable, and so it was military or this, and here I am.
I actually got involved into it as soon as I got back from deployment, and that's when I realized that, that this is what I actually like to do.
A husband and father, Deputy Pacheco says that his wife knows what her husband does is dangerous, but she also knows that what he does is important for America.
Just the way she looks at me makes me feel even better, because I remember I tell her, this is what I want to do. I want to become a law enforcement officer. I want to be a police officer. And she just say, okay, babe, I'll back you up. And when that day finally came and I graduated, and see my whole family there, it was good. It was really good. And then, of course, when I took the next step and decided to become a SWAT member as well, she was happy too. I mean, it hurt because she knew the dangers that would come with it, but she's happy.
When I see regular Americans who aspire to greatness and service to their community, not just to their county, but for America, these are all idealistic men and women who've been drawn to our time-honored profession out of the ideals that everything that's good about our country. And men don't often speak about it, don't often articulate it, but they're motivated by that sense of duty and service and patriotism. And I'm surrounded by heroes. I'm surrounded by patriots who understand what's at stake here.
The support of law enforcement is to me a priority now, and I think it's important for other Americans. They serve our country, and we should do what we can to back them when they have dedicated their lives to protecting the community.
I like to get straight to the point. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. I don't pull punches. I appreciate people that are like that because they give you the truth about what's going on. They tend to stand behind you when you need them. And, with the sheriff's office, we've got that kind of leader right now. The sheriff is out there making it known what the problem is, standing behind his men and women that do this job. And not only our agency, our sheriff stand behind any agency that does this job, any of the military guys. He stands behind those that are fighting for what is right.
Clearly, we need help here. We're not just complaining or screaming here in Arizona. We're diverting resources, have tasked full-time employees, our SWAT commander. We've stood up a border crimes unit. We've purchased additional weapons, technology, night vision goggles. We're purchasing a helicopter, an armored vehicle to go out and actively not just pursue, but to fight back, to let the cartels know that you don't own this place. This is America and American soil. So if it's just the sheriffs and local law enforcement that makes that stand, so be it.
America owes these servants of justice our humbled appreciation. We owe these interceptors of threat our undivided attention and utmost respect. Truth lies upon the lips of those who live it, not the politicians or the politically motivated, who skew it for their own personal agenda and selfish gain. The threat along our southern border will not go away because we pretend it isn't there. It's a 24-hour-a-day, every day of the week event. While we sleep, they are vigilant. While we debate, they are doing the job. Be it thankless, forwardless, or even a little too late in its totality, America is lucky to have heroes like these they can count on. There is little rest for the weary, little reinforcement on the horizon for those who have already given so much. But they battle on in the hope that the people and its appointed leaders will ultimately get it.